my name is Rielly and I'm a Canadian writer, artist, and poet, and I'm continuing my poetry series reading from my own work. Today's poem is called Talking Families, and I hope you like it, and take care. Talking Families. There was a family of doctors I visited once who were like a field drilled with a network of cold, pure water wells. There were lakes underground, layers underneath the surface. To demonstrate my facility with ideas among them, I got in the position to begin a sprint, at which point I saw a wild bird take off into the sky. After I straightened up again, I used the body language of running and jumping, and the wild bird taking off in slow motion the rest of the evening. There was someone boring a hole in the middle of the dinner table, a person with a shovel, making no progress with the wood, but still digging, getting nowhere because they were distracted by the conversations they were having. There were newcomers from another country who had the expression of seeing a stalemate all around them. One couple, a male and female, were drinking persistently until they were suddenly crying and being talked to by everyone like one would talk to children. Several people left. Someone went into the kitchen and broke some plates, maybe by accident. I looked around at the dining room and noticed suddenly what an inordinately large number of plates were in the room, hanging on the walls, on little stands, all around the room, all over the table. I just got up and left, sending a cheerful message from my phone to the woman who had invited me. I was very glad to be by myself for the mechanical and private act of walking home. Then I got into my car to cross town where, though it was dark, there were hundreds of people in the streets and the stores were open and bustling. I felt more at home in the midst of action, along with hundreds and hundreds of people doing hundreds and hundreds of things, just trying to be on their way without being inconvenienced by anyone else. Everything operated smoothly, actually, for the volume of people. Because I'm a writer, I have a complex series of pacts with myself about how I will write. I remember being in a small European country once in a smallish city. It was my first time in a restaurant in this particular country, and I had just begun to speak the language with an introductory CD. I did not speak or understand the language well, but I was proud of my progress. People patiently waited for me. They asked me things and waited for me to understand, and some of the women explained not only what was said by others, but as far as they could, the nuance of what was said, sometimes explaining jokes. It was a family, so many of them, of course, had been playing the same language games together, since they learned from their parents, and they were proud of their improvements in the language games that they had individually made. There was an understanding in their eyes between each other. I made them uneasy because they wanted me to be playing the game too, and I couldn't really. They were talking about physical inheritances and family resemblance, nuance flying everywhere. Every time they spoke to one another, it was clearly a solid piece of the game. There was a lot of subtle bad behavior. But what's the point in bad behavior if I, the person they could show off most to, couldn't understand? They tried to translate the bad behavior. All of this throwing at me something rich, a generations-long interconnected state weaving all of these conversations with one another, and in detail being kept by everyone mutually. I could see after all this translation and the explaining them realize that they probably preferred to be alone with one another than with someone who was new and couldn't keep up. The conversational spiral and interactions were something I liked anyway. I didn't know them, but I saw from them what they most wanted me to know. History was repeating itself, but not really. There was something new every time. Each of them were joking in their own way, making onion paper retracings. There was a smart presentation of playing a role that was unexpected, making use of the fact that those who could correct them were no longer there. It was most interesting that they were in it with each other, to imagine someone else trying to understand it from the outside. Later that evening, after many large events and micro-events, women were tramping across a field at a country wedding under the moon, bringing the baby along and a child. "Why are we walking through this field at night, Mommy?" "Because we love each other and we like to be together, and it's so beautiful out here in the field under the moon." A deer leapt over the fence when it saw us. Later on, after I went to bed, There was a lot of noise in the kitchen where 4 women were taking turns hugging each other and crying and laughing, and then, elated, making way too much food together.